Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
He is Chris Stigall.
Chris Stigall.
I'm joined now by Chris Stigall.
Host of the Chris Stigall Show.
So let's bring in talk radio host Chris Stigall.
Also, his podcast is a must-listen every day. Chris Stigall Show podcast.
And host of the Chris Stigall Show.
Let's bring in Chris Stigall.
Please welcome Chris Stigall.
The Chris Stigall Podcast is presented by usmedicalplan.com. Save big money monthly and get better health coverage at usmedicalplan.com.
Hey there, how you doing? Thanks a lot for downloading the Chris Stigall Show podcast. Always appreciate your 5-star reviews. If you get the time, I know it's an inconvenience, but if you ever get the time to scroll down to the bottom of the menu of shows at Apple Podcasts and leave a written review and a 5-star review, that helps advance our goals and our show more than anything else. Or that 5-star review at Spotify. Grateful that you listen. I should also remind you that if you ever want to watch the video version of this for any reason, when YouTube allows it, we're on YouTube. And also you can check out the show on Rumble every day because that's where free speech lives all the time. So there is a video version of this for those of you that only listen to the audio, rumble.com and YouTube. It's all linked at chrisstigall.com. There's also a link and another video to watch about our title sponsor, John Ruhlman, and usmedicalplan.com, the guy that makes health insurance as affordable as he can possibly find it for you, but still covers you well. You know, the thing is, people ask me all the time, Chris, if I call John and he gives me a cheaper rate, does that mean I'm going to get cut rate insurance? No, not at all. John will shop with 80 different private health insurers that he has access to. He'll run the numbers on your current insurance plan. Maybe you've already got the best insurance out there for you. It could be. He'll tell you if so. But the goal is to, number one, find you a more affordable price tag on insurance. If it exists, it's probably like 30 to 60% cheaper out there. That's generally what he saves people. I mean, I know people that have saved thousands of dollars by making this phone call for their families or themselves as individuals. You know, if you're a senior and you need that supplemental insurance plan to go along with your Medicare, he can cover it. If you're a small business owner and you want to extend insurance benefits to your employees, but it's breaking your budget to afford those premiums to cover your employees, let John go do some work for you. And the great thing is he's an advocate. If you ever have any kind of issues with a doctor's bill or a hospital bill and your insurance, John and his team advocate for you. In fact, they'll jump in right now if you're in the middle embroiled in some kind of thing to help you transition into a new program and do your battles for you. That's what I really love. It's one-stop shopping in a area of our lives that's often very bureaucratic and time-consuming. John tries to make this as easy, affordable, and trouble and worry-free as he can. usmedicalplan.com, usmedicalplan.com, or 877-410-4321. David Limbaugh said this on X last night. He said, I have been intimately involved in Republican politics since I was a kid, and other than the Reagan years, I have never seen Republicans and Americans more fired up, more resolute, more united, and more fiercely prepared to join arms to restore America to its founding principles. It's quite a statement from David Limbaugh, Rush's brother. I agree. And after last night, I think you have to say that maybe you're not a Trump fan, maybe you're still out there ticked off about the way the primaries went down, or you just don't think Trump's the standard bearer. Maybe you're mad about the people that are being invited to the convention or whatever. But as far as the Republican Party and the stars of the Republican Party are concerned, they are all foursquare uniformly now officially behind Donald Trump. Nikki Haley showed up first. Were you a little nervous? Did you start to pucker a bit when she walked out and the boos began to rain down fast, Eddie? Did that make you uncomfortable? That was the first moment of dissension and consternation in the over 24 hours of this convention. It had all been, big feelings and swelling of pride and relief that Trump's alive and dialed in seriousness. And then Nikki Haley came out, and that was the first kind of smattering of boos. I puckered a little, I got to be honest. I didn't like it.
I was totally fine with it because I know she's ambitious. She wants a job. She wants a future in the party. So, I mean, not to diminish her. I'm just saying she knows how to play the game when she needs to.
So you mean you weren't worried about the boos because you figured she was going to go out there and deliver the speech everybody wanted to hear and she'd win them back over?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah. I guess I knew that was coming, but I was just like, oh, there was a bit of walking the plank there for a minute as she walked out. Boo! Anyway, yeah, I think she redeemed herself with the crowd. Here we go.
My fellow Republicans, President Trump asked me to speak to this convention in the name of unity.
All it took was him getting shot.
It was a gracious invitation, and I was happy to accept. I'll start by making one thing perfectly clear. Donald Trump has my strong endorsement, period.
All right, and so that went on, and that was the theme of Nikki Haley. The continuing of her speech was basically that. Time to come home, time to put anything aside that might be politically ugly, and we're here and we're unified. And the crowd, she had them eaten out of her hands from there. It was nice. And we'll see if the Nikki Haley contingent comes home or not. But knocking it out of the park, the moment that I was really waiting for, and I wasn't surprised, he delivered. Ladies and gentlemen, the governor of the Sunshine State, Ron DeSantis, last night.
My fellow Republicans, let's send Joe Biden back to his basement, and let's send Donald Trump back to the White House. Life was more affordable when Donald Trump was president. Our border was safer under the Trump administration, and our country was respected when Donald Trump was our commander-in-chief. Joe Biden has failed this nation. As a veteran, I was appalled when 13 of our service members were killed in Afghanistan due to Joe Biden's dereliction of duty. As a citizen, as a husband, and as a father, I am alarmed that the current president of the United States lacks the capability to discharge the duties of his office. Our enemies do not confine their designs to between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. We need a commander-in-chief who can lead 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. America cannot afford 4 more years of a weekend at Bernie's presidency.
Trump smiling ear to ear.
Let's be honest here. Biden is just a figurehead. He's a tool for imposing a leftist agenda on the American people. They support open borders, allowing millions and millions of illegal aliens to pour into our country and to burden our communities, but just don't send any to Martha's Vineyard, then they get really upset.
Fantastic. Everything from start to finish was fantastic, and Donald Trump was beaming ear to ear. I snapped a photo of it and put it up on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter last night. It was just the perfect firebrand speech from DeSantis, and Trump grinning ear to ear, eating it up. It was the moment, for me, if I'm to be honest, throughout this entire campaign cycle, the primary and now here, that was the moment that I was waiting for. That was the first kind of, for me, exhale moment. You know, the Nikki Haley faction, I don't mean any disrespect to you people that like Nikki Haley or whatever. I think that's still kind of a wild card. I think that if you have all this time been riding with Nikki Haley well after you knew Trump had it sewn up, there's something in you or about you that you're obstinate, and I'm not sure you're coming home. I don't know. But the DeSantis folks, I think, can get there and mostly have, but they're still kind of sore about the way that primary went down. You think DeSantis put it to bed last night for his voters?
Oh yeah, I hope so. I mean, that was I wouldn't expect that kind of a speech from him. I know he's really good at that, but we haven't seen that in a very long time. The
thing is, there's still this, and I don't want to be negative because this is a really positive week, but I see it. Just I got to be honest with you, I still see it. There's still this. It's I can't measure it. I don't know how meaningful it is. There's still this kind of sideline carping about certain guests that are being invited to speak and how the Republican Party is moving away from certain principles. And you're going to be sorry someday what Donald Trump is turning your party into. That there's still that element out there. And I presume when you hear people lamenting what the Republican Party is becoming under Donald Trump, I assume those are typical Republican voters. I wouldn't call them like Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger type Republicans, but they're still out there. I just don't have a sense of how many they are. And in a time where Democrats are really struggling, and it seems there are a lot of Democrats willing to start looking at the Republican Party, there's a segment of the Republican Party that's very angry about Democrats and former Democrats looking at, talking to, being welcomed into the Republican Party. They don't like it. They think it's compromising the Republican platform. I've heard belly aching about the platform. I've heard belly aching about the speakers. And there's an element of, you're going to be sorry for what Trump's doing to this party out there. Now, I don't know how meaningful that is, but I do acknowledge it's out there, Fast Eddie, including it in this audience.
No, they have to get over it. What are we supposed to do? Put the Mitt Romneys back up there to talk? I mean, Mitch McConnell got booed. This is not the Republican Party of 2012. All right, like even Paul Ryan, who's what? He's from Wisconsin.
Yep.
Has he spoken? Does anybody want to hear from him?
Yeah, no. That was actually what I said last night. You know, I was saying it to a friend. We were talking about the convention and how kind of electric and unusual and interesting it's been. And I said, or we could go back to Paul Ryan with charts and graphs. You know, he was always the slideshow presenter. Here in fiscal year 2026, we will be at 50% the intake for Medicare. It's
I don't want to deal with the social politics. I stay away from that stuff. I don't care if your kids are mutilating themselves or whatever. But
and by the way, not for nothing, Ben Carson gave one of the most evangelical speeches I've heard last night. Ben Carson was terrific. And I would identify myself as a social conservative, but I don't know. I got into a row with a few people who are sideline carpers about. They don't like the tone, particularly in night number one, some of the guests. Marco Rubio was outstanding, but so too my girl, my lady. The one that I was really holding out hope might have been the pick. Not that I'm not fine with J.D. Vance, but she came up from Arkansas and just crushed it. Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Good evening. I'm Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Look at that. All she has to do is say her name, the place goes nuts.
And before I get started, I want to say I have always been proud to stand with President Trump, but never have I been more proud than to stand with him right now, tonight. Not even an assassin's bullet could stop him. God Almighty intervened because America is one nation under God, and he is certainly not finished with President Trump.
And she brought the house down. My favorite part of the speech was when she talked about the attacks that she weathered as White House press secretary for Donald Trump and how ugly and vicious and nasty the press was to her, and the way Donald Trump spoke to her. It was a very, it was like father-daughter dynamic, right? And I think Sean Spicer did say to me when I said I wanted Sarah Huckabee Sanders to be the Veep pick, Sean said, here's why that won't happen. He said she's considered sort of under Trump's wing. Trump doesn't view her as an equal. Trump views her as, he didn't say daughter, but now I see it. Now I understand it. And after I heard this speech last night, I get it. Trump probably can't pick somebody to be his Veep who has an experience like this.
So tonight, I don't want to just speak about President Trump's successful policies. While there are many, I want to talk about the man that I know. When the president hired me, I was the first mom and only the third woman to ever serve as the White House press secretary. And in that role, I endured relentless attacks from the left. I was insulted as a guest at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. My family was denied service and kicked out of a restaurant. And a parent at my 3-year-old son's preschool spit on my car. And in those moments, it was President Trump who defended me. And when an MSNBC host, the author of several books on empowering women, said I was unfit to be a mother, and another MSNBC host said I was vile, not even human, and that I should be choked, MSNBC again did nothing. But our president pulled me aside, looked me in the eye, and said, "Sarah, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're tough, and they attack you because you're good at your job. Never let them stop fighting."
And it was at that moment, it was so sweet. You could feel the love she had for him. You could feel the room loving up on her, and you kind of saw him smiling down like a proud dad. And I went, oh, well, okay, that's why she can't be Veep. Right? I think there's some truth to that. I mean, it's like father-daughter. You can't, and not that she wouldn't be capable. I'm just saying now I understand the dynamic, why my dream didn't come true there with the pick of Sarah Huckabee Sanders as Veep.
But Chris, I mean, this speaks to, I remember the 2020 convention. Remember Kayleigh McEnany, who does not share her story very often, said that Trump was one of the first people to call her, when she got the diagnosis, and comfort her. Same thing with Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She's going through that. I mean, you remember all the incoming she took. These personal anecdotes, I feel like we haven't heard this side from a convention before. This is not the stump written for you speech type convention. This is very personal.
And I think last night was exactly the thrust of it. They were attempting to, and I think effectively you picked up on it, they were really attempting to humanize Trump to the audience. And I think Laura Trump, at the conclusion of last night, did a spectacular job. I don't know how her speech went on for maybe a half an hour. She closed out the night, and she's focused almost exclusively on the humanity of Trump and what it is to be his daughter-in-law and what it is to interact with him as a grandfather to her children. And Steve Scalise told a very similar story, but when he was shot, and Trump was one of the first to the hospital to comfort him and his family. Story after story. Well, hell, the woman that was just recently raped and murdered by the illegal, and all due respect to the family who spoke on her behalf last night, her name escapes me now, I'm sorry, but her brother spoke in her honor last night, and he said the same thing. Joe Biden hasn't called me. Kamala Harris hasn't called me. But that guy up there, who's not even president, he called us. He offered his condolences. Of course, he's called and spoken to the woman who just lost her husband at his rally on Saturday. Trump spends more time consoling people, bucking them up. And this is, again, I cannot speak with authority to this. This is all purely anecdotal, but how many times have I said it? In my limited exchanges with him, he loves people. I can see it. I can tell. He's interested in you. He looks at you. While you're there with him, it's like he wants you to feel like you matter. He's not looking over his shoulder. He's not thinking about other people. He's talking to you. He makes you feel great. Ben Carson told a story. Before he was anybody, before anybody knew who Ben Carson was, he was visiting him at Mar-a-Lago. And Ben Carson said, Rod Stewart walked into Mar-a-Lago. And somebody walked up and said, "Sir, Rod Stewart has just walked in." And Trump goes, "I don't care. I'm talking to Dr. Carson." What a great, right? That's the point. That's the point. That's who he is. And I'm not Ben Carson or any of those people, but just in my tiny, tiny little exchange with him, I was like, that's exactly it. That's what I came away with in 5 minutes.
No, Chris, and this is a very, very short story, but everybody that we spoke to during the COVID pandemic from the administration, from the Surgeon General on down, everybody that called, I would pick up the phone, 990, and they'd say, please hold for Secretary such and such. Please hold for Secretary such and such. Well, when Donald Trump joined us for the very first time as president, I pick up the phone, and I'm waiting for, all right, please hold for the president. No. Yes, hello, can I speak to Chris, please? I'm like, what?
He just picked up the phone and dialed you directly, right?
Mr. President,
Yeah. No, there's something new in the air. And after you see him nearly killed, there's something softer, comforting, paternalistic. He's moving into this role as America's patriarch. Maybe it's just me, and again, I don't want to be too overly emotional, but that's my sense of it. People are very, very great. There's an appreciation for him now. I think people are starting to think, my gosh, he nearly died. And what does that mean? And this has taken on a new flavor. It's not the edge. It's not fight doesn't mean grit your teeth, furrow your brow fight. There's a goodness in it. There's a decency in it now. Not just fighting for fighting's sake or being angry or vicious. It's familial. It's warm. There's a cause behind it or something now. It's not empty. It's not show. It's not stage acting. It's palpable. I agree with David Limbaugh. There is an exciting. Dana Perino said it last night. She said she's been around it a long time. She served in the Bush administration as his press secretary. She said, I've never seen anything like this. Never seen this kind of excitement and enthusiasm. And the Democrats are watching it. Like, what are you going to offer? What do you got? I mean, the Husk isn't even going to his convention. Did you know that? They're going to beam him in via satellite or something? At least I think that's what I read, right? They're doing this is going to be interesting this morning. Stand by because we get Tulsi Gabbard coming up, we believe. Assuming her schedule holds. I can't wait to talk with her. She was the number 2 in the Democrat Party under the wet chihuahua, Debbie Wasserman-Schultz, the year that they shivved Bernie and rigged it for Hillary. And she resigned from the Democrat Party, and she never went back. Subsequently, she's become sort of a darling of conservatives. And I can't wait to ask her what she sees here with the Democrat Party and this convention. They're trying to figure out, are they going to be able to hold on to Biden's delegates? Is Biden even going to show up? Is there going to be violence in the streets? Is there going to be a fight at the convention? I mean, that's what they're talking about. Meanwhile, he's going out there trying desperately to win people over, and all he can do is go, what if I take over the Supreme Court? You like that? What else you want? You want a free house? How about that? They're just throwing out nonsense now. I got stories in front of me today. Yesterday, all he can do now is just make up things. How about a Buick? You want a Buick? I can get you a Buick. Free Buicks for everybody. I don't think you can do that. Whatever. Hey there, it's Chris, back on the phone with my dentist and friend Bob Spinato at Williamsburg Dental in Broomall, Pennsylvania, just off the Blue Route with new technology. You have not just new associates, but they brought new technology into the business to make it a little easier for patients.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time in dentistry. We have now introduced a 3-dimensional x-ray called a CBCT scan in our office, which allows us to diagnose and things earlier for patients. My daughter is placing a lot of implants in the past had referred out. It's now being done in-house. And we also, we've been using dental or computer scanners for taking impressions for crowns for about the last 2 to 3 years. We now have introduced the next step, which is a milling machine, and we can now make crowns in the office. Things can be completed in the same day as opposed to having a temporary crown put on and 3 weeks later coming back and having a permanent crown put on. It's really a game changer, and it's a time saver for our patients to not have to make multiple visits to the office.
Pick up the phone or go online, make that appointment, 610-353-2700 or williamsburg-dental.com. Mark Lauder is former special assistant to President Trump, served on a couple of previous campaigns as well. You worked in the White House. You've seen the man behind the scenes. I don't know how much you know about his mindset at this hour. I've been just imagining. We all kind of saw what we thought and interpreted was a grateful, humbled, different-looking man, just facially, as he walked out Monday night in that convention. And how can you not be when you nearly lose your life? And I imagine he's seen that over and over and over on a loop because he consumes a lot of TV. We know that, so he's probably watched a lot of that. One wonders what's on his mind and heart. We hear he's ripped up his speech. He's going to give a different speech Thursday. I think you kind of intimated there. But do you have any sense, or have you heard, is he kind of fundamentally transformed or different in any way? Or is he just so steely-eyed and focused, even this doesn't really permeate?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, obviously, he is always steely-eyed and focused. That's why he's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But I do think, that this has touched him, and from everything I've read, that I've been told, obviously, my friend, he's obviously kept a little bit far away right now, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him personally. But what you see and you hear and what they're telling me is that he realizes that whether either through luck or divine providence, he's here today. And he probably shouldn't be. It's a matter, and I've seen this amazing, and I don't know anything about the origin of it, of this video on social media where these recreationists and criminologists digitized the turn of his head.
Yes.
Compared to what would happen if he had not turned his head. And we are talking about a fraction of millimeters between life and death at a much different convention, a much different campaign, a much different nation. And that's how close we came. And I even saw a segment on Fox News last night. Was it luck or was it an act of God that protected him?
Mark,
I mean, when we're having those kinds of discussions, that's got to shake you. That's got to touch you.
I would imagine. I tried desperately to imagine what that is, to be thinking your blood coming from your head after what has been a gunshot on Saturday, and Monday you're walking out of the convention floor to people cheering you. I don't think you could recreate that.
There's a great quote. I read it this morning somewhere that Don Jr. did a radio interview. I think it was, the days after. And he said he was fishing when it happened. And when he finally got a hold of his dad in the very Trumpian style, he's like, "Dad, how's the hair?" And the president responded, "The hair's fine, Don. The hair's fine. It's got blood in it, but it's fine." I mean, very funny, very, very comical. But I mean, that's the family. I know them, obviously. I'm like, yeah, that's about right. Because he's being sarcastic, but that's great.
How important is Laura Trump at the table for this RNC and co-chair of it? How important is she? It seems to me, for the first time, not only is there this, David Limbaugh, we read his tweet. He said, "I've never seen this kind of excitement and kind of uniformity and unanimity." But also, I do wonder, it's like, this is the first time I felt like the RNC's not over here and the Trump campaign's not over here. They genuinely seem like one. Is that why? Is it Laura Trump's presence?
Well, I think also, too, yes, I definitely do that. And Laura is immensely popular. And look, this family is very close-knit. They're very successful, each and every one of them. And, they want to make sure that this show is going the way they want to. This is also the first real, I would say, unified convention we have had since 2004. So it's been 20 years. Didn't have one last year, or last time. We would have, obviously, but for the pandemic. 2016, there was a lot of angst and still division in the Republican Party over Trump being the nominee. And it happened late when he became the nominee. So you don't really have a huge opportunity to put your imprint on the convention because you just secured the nomination. Hey, and a month and a half later, you're at the convention. And then obviously you had McCain and Romney. Those were obviously, again, not really unified. So we haven't been unified this way since 2004 in the reelection of George W. But you see that now on this campaign. You see it on the convention stage. You see it with the RNC. And I think it's just going to help propel Donald Trump this fall because that's what we need.
Mark, do you read much into the former First Lady not being in attendance? My wife asked me that question. I didn't really think much of it. I know she's a private woman. I don't know if that is. We know she's very interested in being a mother. Barron's graduated now, so people wonder, is she private, or she's really kind of saying, look, this is Donald's deal. I am not. I didn't sign up for this, and he nearly got himself killed. She wrote that beautiful letter. She steps up when absolutely necessary, but otherwise she seems to stay quiet. I mean, she's had her home raided. I think about her a lot. She's kind of she's gotten the shrapnel of the life of Donald Trump, and I just wonder, is it just kind of I'm laying low because I don't need any more than I'm already getting, or what do you think it is?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't want to speak for the former First Lady, but I do know her and her team, and she is very intensely private, and she's very supportive, and she's done a number of fundraisers for the Republican causes that she's very much behind. But she also realizes that every time she steps out on stage, she becomes the focal point, whether it's her speech and they're going to dissect every word. And that became a distraction in 2016. Or it could be, what she's wearing and all of this kind of stuff. And so I think right now she's doing what she's supposed to be doing, which is supporting the president. She does support the president. But she's going to, from what I understand, be there tomorrow night with him when he is on stage. And I think she's going to basically say, look, this is my husband's role. This is his vision. I'm supportive of it, but I'm not going to be a distraction that the media loves to make because they can't argue with him right now. So they're going to pick apart anything they can. So why put yourself in that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't considered it that way. And finally, Mark, I'll ask you, the pick of J.D. Vance, did you like it? Were you thinking he'd go that way? And does it matter? Do people put too much importance on it? Not to disrespect J.D. Vance, but I mean, I think some people were, I heard some kind of traditional political types say, well, I don't know what this does to expand Donald Trump's map. And I kind of feel like that's old school thinking in this particular environment. But you tell me.
Well, I worked for the previous vice president when he got nominated and came on board the campaign with him. So look, no one goes into the voting booth and says I'm voting for blank for vice president. No. You're voting for the top of the ticket. That's absolutely clear. But here's the one thing I do think is brilliant about the selection of J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance can go into Pennsylvania. He can go into Philadelphia. He can go into Michigan, Wisconsin, a Midwesterner, and talk to undecided voters who may not be sold on Donald Trump and go, guys, I get it. I was one of you too back in 2015, 2016. Yes, I was critical and I said some things, but then I stopped and I looked at the records of these two men in office. I looked at their policies. I looked at their vision for the future of America. And you know what? I changed my mind. And guess what? You can do it too. Come on in. The water is fine. I'm almost giving you a look. I was one of you. So he's got an ability that no one else can to say that, yeah, I was undecided. Yeah, I wasn't the whole on board with Trump. But then I saw what he did. Then I saw what he's going to do. And now I'm here. And so he can bring undecided voters, people who are still on the fence, over to Donald Trump by just the mere fact that he was once against him.
How
and I think that's very powerful. Not something that a lot of people can do. And then other leagues, real quickly, he's also young.
Yeah.
And Joe Biden lied to America when he said he was going to be the bridge candidate to the next generation, and now he won't give up power, even though they don't want him anymore. And Donald Trump said, hold my beer, even though he doesn't drink. But hold my Diet Coke, because I'm going to show you who the real bridge candidate is. I'm nominating a guy who's not even turned 40 yet.
Wow.
And to the young people out there, you're now going to see a member of your generation, at the top of our ticket.
So smart. I hadn't really considered it, but you think Trump's leaning into this team of rivals thing? Like, yeah, I just picked the guy who hated my guts a few years ago, and now look, he's my Veep. You think he actually kind of likes that message?
Trump. I think he loves that message. Yes,
wow.
Because that's where we are right now. If you haven't decided yet, what do we need to do to bring you on board?
Yeah, wow, I mean, you know what? Maybe that was the whole theme of last night. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and so many others, including his own Veep, didn't particularly like me, were challenging me, but now they're all here. Mark Lauder, this was really a great conversation, very enlightening. I'm grateful for your time this morning, sir. Thank you so much. Our friends at Gulag America, who have been great sponsors of this show, founding members of the Harumph Society, they like to say their catchphrase, it's not our wish, it's our warning. What exactly does that mean, you might ask? Well, look no further than the indefinite incarceration of Capitol protesters, attacks on the integrity of Supreme Court justices, not to mention a certain recent New York court verdict, 34 counts. Then you begin to understand. But never fear. Gulag America is here with the apparel that you need to express your distress, your frustration, like an inverted U.S. flag shirt, or their original Banana Republic shirt, which is hilarious, or their exclusive J6er shirt that reads, Free the Hostages. And it might just look a bit familiar to you Philly sports fans in particular. So please head over to gulagamerica.com and take advantage of their pre-inflation, pre-Brandon pricing. Just $24 for standard T-shirts all year long. And take an additional 10% off your entire order when you use my promo code CHRIS10. That's CHRIS10. That's how you let them know you listen to the show, which I appreciate, but more importantly, that's how you get the great discount at checkout. gulagamerica.com, CHRIS10, CHRIS10 is your promo code when you shop. It's Gulag America, where they say, and now you know why, it's not our wish, but it is our warning. Yeah, there's somebody at the Republican National Convention that I bet wouldn't have figured she'd be at the Republican National Convention and talking about it just a few years ago, but she is now, and you know her, former Congresswoman and presidential candidate, but for Democrats once upon a time. Tulsi Gabbard is her name. And Representative, it is a real thrill, first of all, to have you on the show. We've not spoken before, so I'm glad to meet you for the first time, at least over the phone here. Good morning.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Good morning. It's good to talk to you.
I was in Philadelphia in 2016 when I believe you were at the number 2 post for the Democrats. Is that about right?
I was a vice chair of the Democratic National Committee at that time, early in 2016.
And that convention, if memory serves, is when you decided, I'm out, I'm done. Is that also about right?
Yeah, there's a little more to the story there, Chris. I had been serving in Congress for a few years at that time. As you recall, the Democratic primary was heating up. As a vice chair and officer of the DNC, the rules say you must be impartial in a primary. Clearly, the leadership of the DNC was rigging even the Democratic primary for Hillary Clinton at that time, much as we've seen them do again here in 2020 for President Biden. But the thing that disturbed me the most, and the reason why I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, was how the Democratic leadership and many of the pundits in the mainstream propaganda media, they were touting Hillary Clinton as the most qualified person ever to run for president in our nation's history. And that was all they said. No one ever explained why that was so, or talked about her foreign policy record and talked about what kind of commander-in-chief she would be. And that was important to me as an American, as a soldier still serving in the Army. And so I resigned as vice chair so that I could I actually endorsed Bernie Sanders in that primary for one issue and one reason alone. It was because of foreign policy and the stark difference between the choice that Democrats had at that time between Hillary Clinton, who is the queen of warmongers. There's not a war that has existed that she hasn't liked or tried to support or orchestrated in our lifetimes, at least. Versus Bernie Sanders, who at that time was largely a non-interventionist. And so I took advantage of the opportunity to try to draw focus, both in big speeches and in media, to her abysmal foreign policy record and how dangerous she would be as commander-in-chief.
The reason I'm relitigating this, and I'm sorry if I'm boring you, I don't mean to, it's just I resetting the table, because you ultimately then, you're running, and I noticed you were the first figure, the first time that I really saw, wow, if somebody steps even a scintilla out of line with Democrats, they will savage you. I saw the way you were treated on Saturday Night Live, for instance. You were made out to be Cruella de Vil. And I just, I've never talked to you before, and I've marveled at the way you were treated the minute you said, hey, I've got a problem with the way we're doing business here in the party. And now we see the mess they're in today, and I wonder how you assess it all.
It's unfortunate but not surprising to see how the Democratic Party is completely unrecognizable from the party that I joined over 20 years ago. And you're exactly right. The party that exists today and the leadership demands total conformity, total compliance. Everyone must walk in lockstep or face the consequences. And my first experience with this was actually my first year in Congress in 2013, when just a few months after being sworn in as a member of Congress, President Obama announced that he wanted to go and start a new regime change war in Syria and that he would come and seek authorization from Congress to do so. I was on the Foreign Affairs Committee at the time, and I did my due diligence. I did my research. I had been deployed to the Middle East a couple of times at this point, and the conclusion that I came to was that like too many of our disastrous, costly regime change wars, President Obama and his team had no clear objective. They had no plan for what happens after you launch the initial attack. They literally said, well, we don't think anyone will retaliate. That was their plan. And that it would end up potentially being yet another costly quagmire in the Middle East with no foreseeable end. So I came out in public and opposed President Obama's request, was the first Democrat to do so. And I was excoriated immediately and got a call from the White House. And I wrote all about this experience in my book I just released called For Love of Country. But got a call from the White House immediately within hours after making this statement saying, how dare you? Who do you think you are? How dare you challenge your president? There was no interest in the substance of my concerns about his policies. And so that was my first exposure to what you're talking about.
Yes.
Challenging Hillary Clinton in public was the ultimate offense, and I experienced the wrath of the entire Clinton machine, which extends far beyond the political figures. As you know well, they have their tentacles in media and in finance and across most sectors that impact our politics. And that continued on into 2020, as you referenced, when I ran in the Democratic primary and once again was the sole outlier that really called out the warmongers in my own former party and called them out for having lost their way. I called out for leadership that I wanted to bring to the party that would bring the party back to being the champion of the people, the champion of free speech, the party of JFK, the party that was not racial, that should not racialize everything, but instead bring to reality Martin Luther King's dream that we would judge each other by our character, not the color of our skin. And those positions that I took, that we must have secure borders, things like that were not only rejected by the Democratic Party leadership, they did everything that they could to destroy me.
Tulsi Gabbard is with us, former Congresswoman. The book, again, For Love of Country. The theme this week, and obviously given the events of Saturday, I think it's done a lot to kind of almost force the issue, and that is unification inside the Republican ranks. I think last night, people like Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis kind of putting to bed, hey, we're here, we're on board. We'll see if all their voters are too. But my question for you is, Donald Trump seems to be building a convention and a movement now that's a team of rivals, including J.D. Vance, who famously, has said a lot of stuff about Trump. He didn't like him. And, the suggestion was just made to me that that's almost something Trump leans into. He likes surrounding himself with people that maybe either didn't like him, don't, and he's trying to win them over, or he's brought them around. And I know you've talked with him. I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think you support him for president, and I'm just curious, is that what you see this convention and Donald Trump is trying to kind of reach out and go big tent in a way we haven't seen from the parties in a while?
I think that's true, and it's not only the political figures that you've mentioned, but I think inviting the head of the Teamsters Union, for example, is unprecedented and a huge symbol of that big tent. You have very famous figures like Amber Rose, whose remarks were beautiful and powerful and impactful, that really speak to the issues and challenges that most Americans resonate with. They feel that they're concerned about, and it really is a beautiful opportunity and call to action for us to come together. And I think it's bigger than just Trump wanting to surround himself with a team of rivals. It's about us being able to see past the divisiveness that the Biden-Harris administration, the Democrat elites have been fomenting for so long, that have led to this the kind of assassination attempt that we saw on Saturday. It's the only logical conclusion of where that leads. And so this is really about bringing us together as Americans. It's bigger than the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, because our freedom is under attack. Freedom of speech is under attack. Our civil liberties are being violated. We have people in power who see themselves as above the Constitution and above accountability and above the rule of law. And that is what is pushing us closer to a banana republic, and what is beginning to unravel the foundation of our democratic republic. And so, yes, I wholeheartedly support President Trump in this election, and am doing all that I can to share this message with people who maybe are like me, who are former Democrats or who are frustrated or disturbed by the direction the Democratic Party has taken, or, the independents and civil libertarians, those swing voters who don't feel they have a home in either party, but who really do care about our country. This is our time and our opportunity and our responsibility as citizens to take action and to save our country and to defend freedom.
Tulsi, I heard from more than a few people in this audience people reached out and they said, who would make a great Veep pick? Tulsi. I don't know if that was ever a conversation or a thought in your head, but I do have to ask, just for the sake of asking, had you been asked, would that be something you'd do? Serve as Veep for Donald Trump?
Yes, I of course. My life, I have chosen to dedicate my life in service to our country, and that's been in politics, then it's in the military, and so if given the opportunity in any role, my question for myself is always, where can I make the most positive impact? Where can I be where I can actually help to address and solve the great challenges and threats that we face in this country, both here at home and in our foreign policy. And so, of course, if given the opportunity to serve and actually begin to root out the deeply seated corruption and abuse of power that exists within our own government, I would eagerly accept and attack that opportunity to make that impact.
So we could imagine a cabinet post. I know you're not predicting or suggesting it, but one could imagine you would be asked, and one could imagine if asked, you would serve in a president's cabinet.
If it's a role where I feel that I can make that difference, yes.
Wow. I am curious, just in the time we have left, do you see the Democrats effectively ridding themselves of Biden? It's pretty clear they want to. It says Pelosi's working the phones, and we know about the George Clooney stuff and all of that. Has the attempted assassination of Trump, the Oval Office speech for Biden, has that kind of solidified him and they're stuck with him now? Or do you think they're going to be able to offload him before the convention?
I don't think it's solidified him. I know that there are many people who would like to see him kind of put out to pasture, and they want a new horse to come and run this race. Whether it happens or not, though, we'll know in the next couple of weeks. But I think it's important for us to see the truth, is that whether Joe Biden's their horse or they bring in a different horse that would likely be Kamala Harris, we know that Joe Biden's not the one calling the shots. And if they replace him with Kamala Harris, she's not going to be the one calling the shots either. So things won't change. Policies won't change. The abuse of power won't change. Those in the who are unelected, people that we cannot hold accountable, are the ones making the decisions and pulling the levers of power in our country. And that is what is most dangerous. And so we can't be distracted by the superficial kind of facade that they have put up as their front as they continue to do what they're doing behind the scenes. We'll see what happens. We can't be deterred from the mission that we should have as Americans, which is, again, to save our country from people who are trying to destroy it.
You still surfing?
Not often enough. I expect to be on the road. I expect to be on the road and campaigning and doing all I can over these next 3.5 months. But both my husband and I love the ocean. We're surfers, and we're looking forward to getting back in the water somewhere, somehow, soon.
Is Hawaii still home? Or is that still where you reside?
Hawaii is home. Yeah. No, Hawaii is home, but we've got friends and family on the mainland, and so we've got a bit of a home away from home. But
I bet you missed that.
You can't take you can take the girl out of Hawaii, but Hawaii is always in my heart.
You're very nice to get up early with us this morning, Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you so much for your time. It was great to talk with you.
Great talking to you, Chris. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Well, if you haven't noticed, inflation is still at a 40-year high. The stock market looks more uncertain than ever. And a new central bank digital currency is on the way. That could be the government's ultimate surveillance tool against Americans. It seems like the government is playing games with your savings and retirement. And so what do you do to help protect yourself? Did you know you can put physical gold and silver into an IRA or a 401k with zero taxes or penalties? Millions of Americans are doing it right now. And you should consider it too if you want to preserve and protect your wealth. And there's only one company that I would recommend to you to do that. It's a company called Preserve Gold. Now, they'll go over all your options and make the process of acquiring precious metals easy and simple. So if you're looking to help protect your retirement with a trustworthy company, request your free investment guide from the experts at Preserve Gold. Preserve Gold is accredited with the Better Business Bureau. They have hundreds of 5-star reviews. So you know you're in good hands. Just text Stigall to 50505. Again, text Stigall, my last name, Stigall, to 50505 and get an exclusive offer for everybody that's tuned into this show. You're going to get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualifying purchase or a retirement account rollover. Yeah, that's huge. Don't wait. Text my name, Stigall, to 50505 today. Get your free gold and silver investment guide and take that first step. Again, that's Stigall, Stigall. Text it to 50505 and get your free guide from the good people at Preserve Gold. Nationally consuming story, but here we are in the middle of the RNC, and by the end of the week, who knows what media will be talking about, probably whether Biden's going to stay or go, but like we almost kind of treat an assassination attempt as, well, that was interesting. What else is on? Which actually made us think about Bill O'Reilly, our great friend, host of No Spin News, weeknights at 6, author of the new Confronting series, Confronting the Presidents. No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden, which is coming out in September. We're always grateful for Bill's time. Mr. O'Reilly, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me in. Really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, and I wonder if you see it the same way, that we're in a weird news cycle now. Not that you haven't been a part of the news cycle forever. I know you study it. Obviously, you're in it. But aren't we in a weird place where that's not the biggest news for a while?
You know, I understand your point, but I'm taking a different tact on this. So for me and my operation, the assassination of the civilian and then the wounding of Donald Trump and the two others is now placed before the hate brigade. So what I've done is I've kind of divided the coverage in two. And I think you're right about people are, obviously relieved, most of them, that Donald Trump didn't get assassinated, because that would have set the country back 50 years easy. But it's summer and people are working and they're on vacation and they're running around, and so they're diverted. But with the news agencies, it's a little bit of a different story. The big picture outside of the assassin himself, who's dead, is the corporate media, NBC, Disney, are the two biggest offenders who continue to pay people to hate and to foment, word of the day, foment division among us. I'm on that every day. And what's happened is startling. My operation, the No Spin News, is out of BillO'Reilly.com, but as you know, we have distribution all over the country, both on radio and television. And our audience now, for our special that we did right after the assassination, is more than 4 million.
Yes.
So we're at par with the cables and the network. It took 7 years to get there, hard work, but we're there.
It's amazing.
And last night I was on Jon Stewart on The Daily Show. So my message is we're not going to let this go.
Good.
Now, as far as the conventions are concerned, I don't really give a hoot. I don't. I'm not a registered Republican or Democrat. I've covered so many of them, Chris. I mean, they're numbing after a while. I understand why they're necessary, and if people like them, that's great. But for me, I really want to root out this evil, and it is evil, in this country, whereby some individuals want to destroy, and I mean that literally, their political opposition. I am now front and center in confronting these people.
It's so critically important. Tammy Bruce has got a new book similarly coming out. We just talked to her yesterday, and hers is a similar theme, where this poison, this divisive poison that's encouraging everyone to hate one another, where it's coming from and how it's been very effective, right? It kind of, if you're not alert to it, it can consume you quickly, and you're participating in it before you realize it, Bill.
Yes, but I think most Americans, I told this to Stuart last night, and one of the reasons that we put that together, Stuart and I, was to show people that you can go on and have some laughs and, even if you disagree, and you don't have to be vicious out there.
You and Letterman did it.
Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to convert Letterman over. Stuart and I had a rapport almost from the beginning. But most Americans don't want that. I put the number at 70%. I don't think your audience in Philly tunes into you every day to want you to destroy people and harm people.
You're right.
I don't get that. Mine doesn't. I got a few nuts, and they'll write me letters going, these people are so evil, but my side never does that. And I go, what? I ran a montage last night of right-wing hate. I said, no, it's worse on the left, there's no doubt, because you have corporations actually paying for it. And the top one is Comcast in Philadelphia.
Yes.
But it's on the right, too. And it's got to be condemned across the board. So that's what I'm taking out of this, that we can off a tragedy, and I don't like that word because it's not like somebody is getting hit by lightning here. It's human evil. So off evil, we can now make some strides in the other direction and put these haters on the defensive. And that's what I'm doing.
Bill O'Reilly's No Spin News, again, every night at 6, BillO'Reilly.com, confronting the president's No Spin assessments from Washington to Biden, out in September, and we'll look forward to it. Bill, you mentioned the right-wing hate, and I will ask you something that I'm very sincere when I ask you this. Do you believe, and this is where I do I have to check myself, and I wonder when I say it, do I believe it? Do I mean it? And I think I do, and maybe you'll disagree. I genuinely believe there are corrosive, destructive forces at work within our government that wish to destroy it and tear it apart. I believe that in my heart and soul. And I don't know if you want to call that evil, and I don't know if that's fomenting hate, but I sincerely believe that. Ill-intended people that want to tear our institutions to shreds. Is that irresponsible of me to say?
Not if you isolate it and give fact-based examples of it. Then you're a patriot. Then you're doing what you should do. And say, look, let me give you an example, all right? Let's so everybody knows we're talking about it. We'll take it from the theoretical into the realistic. Mm-hmm. The FBI, Comey, McCabe, all these people, they took the finest investigative news agency in the world, which was never supposed to be political, even though that evil J. Edgar Hoover put it in that direction. They took it, and they used it, the FBI, to advance their political ideology. I mean, that's evil to me.
And I believe we're living it now, don't you, with the raid on Trump's home and things like that?
Not to the degree that it was. Ray is just a sop. SOP. He's an ideologue. He's in the big Washington cocktail party circuit. They all have to be left if you're in that circuit. But he's not like McCabe and Comey. But that's a good example that you take something that's set up to protect we the people, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and you use it to advance ideology.
What about Mayorkas and the border, for instance? The unwillingness to secure the border.
That's a little bit different. So So Mayorkas is a feeble bureaucrat, a dishonest hack. Now, you might say, O'Reilly, you're just a hater now. You're doing what you're condemning. No. I'm describing how he does his job. Mayorkas has not one input into that southern border. He does exactly what he's told to do by the Biden administration. Okay? He couldn't care less about the thousands of pounds of narcotics coming in here, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. He couldn't care less about the human trafficking, the drug cartels. Doesn't care. He lives in Georgetown. All he wants to do is have his chauffeur thing, take him around. Whenever they call him, he picks up the phone and goes, yes, sir, whatever you want. But that goes back to George Washington, Chris. Those kinds of bureaucrats.
So you don't think it's an evil ideology. You just think it's a function of a lazy partisan bureaucrat.
I don't see Mayorkas as evil. I see him as venal. Mm-hmm. I'm using a lot of big words on a radio.
It's early, Bill. It's early. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I don't see him as evil, okay? I don't see Joe Biden as evil. I see Joe Biden as someone who's the second worst president in our history, and you'll see when you read Confronting the Presidents that James Buchanan was the worst, okay? Because Biden is so incompetent and disinterested and apathetic in doing his job. It's shocking. It's shocking how incompetent this man is. Now, some people can say, whoa, he wants to do that. He isn't Bernie Sanders. Okay? Biden's not Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is to blow up the capitalistic system. Mm-hmm. That's what he's in business to do. Biden's not that way. Biden just wants the trappings of the job, whatever they tell him to do, they being the people who run the White House, this progressive madness. He does. He's thrown his own Catholic faith over the cliff. I mean, the guy is, I call him a man of no seasons. He's got nothing. All right, no principles at all.
Bill, when someone shoots at Donald Trump and nearly kills him, and we're all profoundly aware of how close he was to dying, the visceral reaction in those of us who support Donald Trump, I think is, and I wanted to really keep it in check this week, and I wanted to be really responsible with the microphone and not whip things up and make things worse, but I understand that a lot of people felt such rage. I noticed there were a few people that turned around at the media, flipped him the bird right then and there on the spot.
Yeah, we saw that one guy.
Mad. I mean, because they believe that there is an evil and an excess that has been so vicious and vitriolic directed at Trump that it got him nearly killed. And so now there are people in this country that say, oh, is that the way you want to play? And they kind of want their pound of flesh. Now, I don't support that. I want to ratchet it down, but do you understand that sentiment?
There.
Yeah.
It's there, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, look, I've known Trump for more than 35 years. I talked to him yesterday. And somebody that I've known that long gets shot, and a quarter of an inch, he's dead. I'm a little agitated.
Yeah.
But it takes discipline. Mm-hmm. You don't go out, you don't lash out at other people. Now,
I think he's shown that way. He's shown that, Bill, hasn't he? You talked to him, and sorry to interrupt, but
he has a big advantage.
Yeah,
he has a big advantage tomorrow night. If he goes out and he says, "Look, I'm dialing it back a little bit. I have made some rhetorical mistakes, and I'm going to try not to do that. I'm going to try to convince the American voter that my vision for the country is much stronger than my opposition. But I'm going to try to knock off the personal stuff." He'd win. He says that tomorrow because Biden will never say it.
Yeah. Do you think Trump is? I mean, based on your conversation, if you've spoken with him, you say is he a changed man? He looked a changed man Monday night. I don't know how you couldn't be. Yeah, you can't tell. Okay.
No, it wasn't that extensive, but I can't tell whether he's changed or not changed. And then people change, as you pointed out, for 3 days, and then they change back. So, who knows? I don't do that kind of reporting.
Yeah.
I basically put forth, look, this would be best for the country if this happened, and this is what I'm doing. I'm taking on, over the last 4 days, there has been nobody in this country as outspoken as I have been against the haters on both sides, and I have named them. Which is why everybody who's listening to us right now should go to BillO'Reilly.com and sign up to be a premium member. You can watch my stuff. You don't have to be a member. It's everywhere now. YouTube and, you name it, it's there. But this is why I'm doing this, because I want to improve the country. And the only way it improves is if this hate brigade is forced to stop. NBC forced Morning Joe to stop.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you. I'm so glad you brought it up, Bill O'Reilly.
They took him off the air.
They took Morning Joe off the air.
Right. What a blatant admission that NBC Comcast funds hate. Does it get any more vivid than that?
You've been in that business, so what is that? I really want people to understand what it means when you take your primetime morning news show off the air on what is arguably the biggest news day in a long time. What does that mean?
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Now, I check the ratings because I check them every day. They fell off a little bit. They had a little bit of a dip, but not much, because MSNBC doesn't watch. Those viewers don't care and watch about the Republican convention. But it's so embarrassing. You're basically telling the world, yeah, we know they're haters, but we pay them anyway.
And so when Scarborough comes back yesterday and says, you better not do that again or I'm out of here, what do you make of that bravado?
Well, he can do that because CNN would hire him. So he's got somewhere to go. Most journalists these days got nowhere to go. There's nobody at Fox who can go anywhere. Okay, they're not going to get hired anywhere. And at CNN, they are such a failure. Nobody's going to hire them. But Morning Joe, if he wanted to walk, CNN will put him on in the morning.
Bill O'Reilly's book is confronting the president's no-spin assessments from Washington to Biden, out in September, BillO'Reilly.com, every day. The failings of the Secret Service, Bill, are you aghast at this person running the Secret Service and what they're now admitting they knew and didn't do in advance of this shooting?
Well, she'll be fired. I mean, she would have been fired by a responsible president by now, but we don't have a responsible president. He probably doesn't even know her name.
Said it was a he when asked by Lester Holt, right? I have talked to him, said Biden.
Right,
yeah.
He does. Look, outside of Jill and Hunter, he doesn't know who anybody is. Yeah, she's gone. They'll haul her up in Washington, and I think probably before that she'll have to resign. That was terrible. One word, terrible. It can't happen ever again in this country.
You're a historian. What was the significance of Donald Trump standing up and pumping that fist in that moment?
Well, it was like Teddy Roosevelt. It's the same thing. Teddy Roosevelt in 1912, giving a speech in Milwaukee, ironically. Somebody walks up to him. They didn't have Secret Service protection then, if you can believe it. They have 4 assassinated presidents, and they didn't have Secret Service president. But they shot Teddy in the heart. And Teddy had a speech and a glass case inside his jacket, which deflected the bullet. We write about that extensively in Confronting the Presidents. And then he continued with his speech. He said he's going to take more than that to kill a bull moose because he's running on a bull moose party. So it was exactly what Teddy did.
Amazing.
And that's what our history it repeats itself. But it was exactly the same kind of defiance that happened in 1912.
You think Trump wins, Bill O'Reilly?
I have no idea, because I predicted in January that big things were going to happen. My audience goes, well, what? Well, what? I said, look, I'm not an oracle, okay? But I know big things are going to happen. So the debate debacle was big thing number 1. The shooting was big thing number 2. There'll be one more.
Oof.
I don't know what it is.
We will be watching as he covers it, as he does every day. No Spin News, 6 o'clock on the East. It's BillO'Reilly.com and the new book, Confronting the Presidents. No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. It is always a pleasure to catch up, Bill. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks for having me, and Chris, I really appreciate it. We'll talk again after the book comes out, I hope.
I hope so. At the very heart of our democracy lies a principle we hold sacred, and that's free speech. It's the cornerstone that supports every freedom we cherish, allowing ideas to flourish, debates to ignite, and progress to be made. Without it, our pursuit of liberty, our ability to challenge, or our capacity to innovate, it would be really constrained. Now, in today's digital age, the very platform that should democratize information is being allowed to narrow the spectrum of ideas we're exposed to. Really important discussions about our wealth, our rights, our future, systemically silenced or overshadowed in mainstream narratives, leaving many feeling voiceless in conversations that are really crucial to your financial independence and your security. And that's where the company Wealth Protection Research steps in. They're armed with a mission that's never been more critical. Wealth Protection Research is not a financial advisory firm. I want to be clear about that. They're defenders of free speech. They're committed to giving a voice to the silenced. In an era where dialogues about retirement, investments, economic freedoms are increasingly censored, Wealth Protection Research is focused on ensuring that diverse, controversial, and revolutionary ideas also get a platform. Wealth Protection Research tirelessly seeks out financial experts through leaders and thought leaders, trailblazers, all who have been pushed to the margins by mainstream media and tech platforms like Facebook and Google. These are the voices that challenge prevailing narratives, offering fresh, often contrarian perspectives on protecting and growing your wealth, especially as we navigate the uncertainties of this coming election. By spotlighting these thinkers, people like Jim Rickards or Porter Stansberry, Wealth Protection Research is not just sharing financial advice, they're fostering a movement toward a more open, informed, and free society. Wealth Protection Research has created a 2024 election wealth protection report, and it's a completely free report. It highlights the 3 best ideas for protecting and growing your money heading into the 2024 election, and it also contains ideas the mainstream media doesn't want to touch. Listeners to this show can get this whole thing completely free if you text the word ideas to 76626. Just text ideas to 76626, and if you do that today, you're also going to get a free gold investment kit from Wealth Protection Research. And the sponsor of that is Augusta Precious Metals, by the way, and we appreciate that. So just text ideas to 76626. If you're like me and you believe in the sanctity of free speech and the importance of financial freedom, act now. Text ideas to 76626. Claim your free copy of this 2024 election report. You know, it's time to widen the scope of what we're told. You know, we believe that here. Hear the ideas that establishment folks can't handle and don't think you can handle. Take control of your own financial destiny. Text ideas to 76626 to claim your free copy. The battle for free speech is the battle for our future, and Wealth Protection Research ensures that the ideas capable of shaping our financial well-being are available to all of us who want to hear them. So don't wait. Grab your free report right now. Text ideas to 76626 and claim your free copy. 2 senators yesterday. One had a really great day and one had a terrible day. If you're in New Jersey, your senator had a very terrible day. If you're in Ohio, your senator's having a very good week and a very good day. J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, has now surged to number 1. It jumped from 220 on Amazon's list yesterday to now number 1 and number 2 on Amazon. It was already a bestseller, and it was made a movie, and now it's back to number 1 again. That's a good week if you're J.D. Vance. On the other hand, if you're Bob Menendez, you're probably going to go to prison for the rest of your life. Poor Bob.
Good afternoon. Obviously, I'm deeply disappointed by the jury's decision. I have every faith that the law and the facts did not sustain that decision and that we will be successful upon appeal. I have never violated my public oath. I have never been anything but a patriot of my country and for my country. I have never, ever been a foreign agent, and the decision rendered by the jury today would put at risk every member of the United States Senate in terms of what they think a foreign agent would be.
You know it's bad when you have to come out and say, I've never been a foreign agent. I mean, the only thing I will say, I have no love lost for Bob Menendez, and I do think he's probably a weasel. But I also know that he's one of these guys that the American left has problems with. He's been a monkey wrench, particularly in dealing with Iran. He doesn't like Iran, and he doesn't like normalizing relations with Cuba, and he gave the Obama administration a lot of trouble over that, and they never forgave him for that. Bob has gotten crossways with Democrats a couple too many times, I think. And we know that Donald Trump has been accused of being a foreign agent, too, right? But the thing is, we've not found gold bullion and furs and cars from Egyptians in Donald Trump's, closet and driveway, so... It's not analogous. I would hear it if you said there are people inside this government that would like to be rid of Bob Menendez. I would hear it. I'm not saying he's not a weasel, but I'd hear it. But anyway, Bob's going away. So we wish Bob all the best in his future endeavors. Bobby Red Light Menendez. Guy who, by the way, before he got married was flying down to his little island there and buying lipstick for the locals. The eye doctor, his eye doctor buddy Salman his eye doctor buddy Salman Meljan is already in the lockup for taking a bunch of Medicare money, scamming Medicare and Medicaid, so with Bob's help. Elon Musk. Haven't talked about this week. How about X? How important is X right now as a platform? How much of a difference in the last year has X made in this news cycle, Fast Eddie? Seriously, scale of 1 to 10. If it weren't for X, fill in the blank. If it weren't for X, what? We'd know nothing? There'd be zero truth out there?
Oh, Chris, I mean, have we just accepted the fact that the federal government colluded with social media to suppress and hide information?
That's
we
right.
would never, ever know that. That's huge in American history.
How about this Secret Service story? Do you think the failings of the Secret Service, would we know it were it not for X?
That's one of the first questions I get is, why did the FBI have the cell phone? Now that they have it, will we ever know what's on it? So no, who knows if we could ask these questions without X?
Elon Musk says he is committing around $45 million a month to a pro-Trump super PAC. And in doing so, big names in tech are now turning Donald Trump's way, shifting since Elon Musk has done so. J.D. Vance, also being identified as a venture capitalist, has a lot of people excited in Silicon Valley, they write here at the Wall Street Journal. Rising support among tech executives is helping fuel the Trump campaign efforts with funds from deep-pocketed donors. America PAC has drawn support from associates of Elon Musk's, including tech investor Joe Lonsdale, Antonio Garcias, a former Tesla director and current SpaceX board member, Kenneth Howry, Sequoia Capital Partners, Sean McGuire, and Doug Leone. We mentioned the Winklevoss twins. They're the PayPal guys, among others. Meanwhile, Microsoft has laid off their DEI team. Is Silicon Valley starting to shift? Are the tech weirdos starting to wise up a little bit? Maybe. In an email viewed by Business Insider, a Microsoft team leader wrote, "True systems change work associated with DEI programs everywhere are no longer business critical or smart as they were in 2020. Political winds are turning, it seems. So Silicon Valley seems to be shifting quickly. Very, very interesting. And meanwhile, Elon Musk says, I'm taking X and I'm taking SpaceX and I'm moving the hell out of this hellhole California once and for all. Good for him. And no time like the present, because did you see what Governor Newsom of California signed yesterday into law? This scumbag. This is straight out of hell stuff. And coming to Pennsylvania and every other Democrat-governed state very soon, if Gavin Newsom does it, they'll all do it. It'll come eventually, and no matter how crazy you think this is, it will come. And this is why I say get your kids the hell out of public school and quick. Governor Gavin Newsom signed legislation that will make California the first state in the union to stop schools from notifying parents if their kid starts using different pronouns and identities as a different gender than what's on their school record. It will be illegal in California if your kid starts playing dress up, pretending to be a different gender, asks to be called a different name, and tells teacher, I don't want my parents knowing about it. The teacher is now, by law, obliged to defend and protect and hide and keep secret your kid's decision to behave this way and do these things. It is against the law for the teacher to call the house and tell you as the parent what's going on. Against the law, did you hear me? It is against the law for a school teacher to tell a parent that their child is cracking up. Get your kids the hell out of public school. Get the hell out of California. And Elon Musk says, I am now. He had kind of 1 foot in Texas, 1 foot in California. Elon is now saying, I'm out. And after the president was nearly killed Saturday, he was like, here's all my money. I'm getting the hell out of California. Like, Elon is done. Like, there's no game anymore. He's not trying to thread a needle or straddle the fence. Elon's just all in now, Fast Eddie. He's not playing anymore.
I know. I absolutely love it because few people have the power to just do that. Yeah. He's one of the few people in the country that actually can. So I'm glad to see he is.
Let's turn to this unbelievable Secret Service story. You've heard, I mean, from just the news, Secret Service director under scrutiny for diversity initiatives. You have heard allegations that resources were redirected to cackle britches and Dr. Jill, who were also in Pennsylvania Saturday. So they already had a very thin Secret Service herd as it was. And what they did have were certainly not the best. Because now you see Trump this week, he's flanked by these, guys that are taller than, the 10-foot tall men now are all surrounding Trump. But Saturday, it was a much different story. But what has come to light now is really something. Dan Bongino was talking with, this was a brief clip from his Rumble show, Dan Bongino talking with Tucker Carlson and Don Jr. The Trump sons, Eric and Don Jr., they have been doing these cable news hits from the RNC this week while news breaks in real time. I want you to consider this, Fast Eddie. Your dad has just been shot and nearly killed Saturday. And then you go on TV and you're sitting there with people expecting an interview and then breaking news. Hey, we just found this out. The people in charge of trying to protect your dad that allowed him to get shot, wow, did they drop the ball? Listen to this new detail. How do you react? Your dad was nearly murdered Saturday, and the news breaks on live television while you're sitting there. They so unbelievably, I'll say dropped the ball for now to be charitable. Many people think it's purposeful, but whatever. However you want to look at it. This was allowed to happen. I mean, it just was. Whether negligent or purposeful, it was allowed to happen. And I don't know how I would react if I'm sitting there and I find this out, that my dad was nearly murdered Saturday, and this Keystone Cop crap, either on purpose or negligence, allowed it to happen. I've seen a couple of interviews where it seems like they're about to come out of their skin. Like angry. Wouldn't you be? I mean, I don't even know how I'd contain myself.
Well, yeah. I mean, the Secret Service has one job, Chris. So to think that all of these things, who doesn't know that the rooftop 150 yards away is a spot for someone that would try to take a shot?
Well, it's sloped, Fast Eddie. It was a sloped roof, and the Secret Service lady gave her interview to Pierre, what's his name, over there at ABC, and said, "Hey, it's a sloped roof. It's dangerous for the guys to get up there with guns on the sloped roof."
Yeah, I forgot about that detail.
There was a meme out there on social media today of Santa Claus about to come down the chimney, and it says, "Sorry, kids, no presents this year. Sloped roof." Sloped roof. Shut up. And even though, and even so, the slope. A guy supposedly climbs up a ladder or on an air conditioning unit. They can't even get that straight. Was there a ladder? Wasn't there a ladder? They've seen him. So they said, the roof is sloped. We got to put him inside the building instead. So inside the building are now reports that these guys saw this guy on 3 different occasions with a scope, with a backpack, maybe with a ladder, locked eyes with him. Nothing. People on the ground see this guy scaling up the building on the roof. Hey, there's a guy with a gun on the roof. I mean, short of skywriting it, there were 1,000 alarms going off simultaneously that there was a guy about to take a shot on Donald Trump. Nothing. How this woman still has a job. But again, before I go to the Bongino thing, let me play. I tell you what, brilliant minds. Newt Gingrich last night on Fox, as if he was reading my mind straight from my monologue Monday morning. Listen to Newt.
Who was fired for Afghanistan? No one. Who was fired for being totally wrong about Kiev? No one. Who's been fired for having 9 million or 11 million people cross the border? No one. Why would you think the Biden administration, the most corrupt, incompetent administration in our history, would suddenly discover that with responsibility comes accountability? These are bad people doing bad things.
I think a very smart talk show host told you Monday, if you're waiting for accountability, if you're expecting accountability, it ain't coming. And listed a laundry list of failures that no one's been held accountable for. Well done, Newt. All right, to Dan Bongino. Here's what he said that he's hearing. Remember, former Secret Service guy Bongino, so he has friends still on the inside of this operation. Listen.
So I was just showing Tucker some material from an unimpeachable source, let's just say, on the matter. That post, according to my source, that roof was supposed to be a police post. It was supposed to be someone there. They're now making up excuses, saying the pitch of the roof. My source says to me, no one knows why the post didn't show up. But so that's a nonsense story they're putting out in the media. And I was also told that the Secret Service director has been given instructions from the administration and the DHS secretary. If you want to keep your job, you'll keep your mouth shut about this. They're not putting that out there, but if you get those site post logs and those police instructions and there was a post on there and they didn't show up and no one checked, someone could have got your dad killed within millimeters.
He's talking directly to Donald Trump Jr., delivering this news directly to him live on his show. So Bongino is saying that this sloped roof thing is a complete ruse and made up as an excuse that actually there were supposed to be people on that roof and they didn't show up. Jesse Waters has been outstanding on asking the questions. He has ticked off a laundry list of questions. He did so Monday night. He continued last night. Listen.
The sloped roof excuse is a hoax. What good are counter snipers inside a building if they can't see an assassin scale the building? The roof wasn't too dangerous for the assassin. He didn't slide off. He got 8 shots off. CNN reports they didn't even have drones in the sky. Emma's birthday party had a drone. And I don't have a $3 billion budget like Stigall. But never mind the drone. The shooter was spotted acting suspicious by men on the ground a half an hour before he opened fire. Sources tell Fox that the shooter was seen with a rangefinder casing the stage. CNN says he locked eyes with one of the snipers through the rangefinder. Multiple reports say authorities were radioing the Secret Service about a suspicious individual, even sending pictures of him, and nothing was done about it. And they let Trump take the stage and remain on it. How does the Secret Service get outfoxed for half an hour by a kid with no military training? CBS reports Crooks disappeared and was later seen with a backpack. And the story keeps changing about the latter. Now the media is reporting that Crooks used an air conditioning unit to hop atop the 12-foot building. So where's the 5-foot ladder that he says he bought? And were police wearing body cams? Because we'd like to see those. CNN said he drove his Hyundai Sonata and parked it outside the rally. So why did they tow away a big conversion van? How does a soft civilian with a rifle get on the roof of a Secret Service watch post and almost murder the president? We're also learning tonight that Crooks' father called 911 just after Trump got shot. How did the dad immediately know his son was the shooter? And why did the Secret Service announce Crooks acted alone before they'd accessed his phone? How'd they know? We hear they're in his phone now, but they're not telling us anything. The assassin didn't text, didn't email, didn't have calls from anybody, had no Google search history, no social media footprint. Come on. The FBI covered up the trans shooter's motive, never ID'd the Vegas massacre motive, and called the Fort Hood shooting workplace violence. You think we're going to get a straight answer here? And with all these mysterious failures, Biden says he still has confidence in Cheadle, but doesn't know Cheadle's a woman.
Right. Great questions, all. And now, yesterday, they float out a story that Iran has been plotting. They've uncovered a plot by Iran to assassinate Donald Trump. And in my opinion, while I have no interest in defending Iran, and I'm sure they would love to see Donald Trump dead because he's coming for them, I don't know that I even believe that. I mean, if I'm to be wholly honest with you, they come out and they say Iran wants to assassinate Donald Trump. So what? We're all supposed to draw the conclusion that the kid climbing up on the roof might have been funded by Iran? Is that what we're supposed to do? I bet that's what they want us to do. Oh, he was probably paid off by Iran. Probably a bad guy that got some money and, you know, some 20-year-old that some Iranian sympathizer got close to and said, here's some cash, go off Donald Trump. I bet that's what, I mean, they're floating, you know, the sloped roof. This stuff gets floated out into the news cycle to distract you and me from the questions that Jesse just ticked off there, and we shouldn't. They're all over the map with this story, and he's right. We're not getting answers to very basic questions. By the way, if you are not a Harumph Society member, the membership has just exploded. I gave away Saturday and Monday, and then yesterday, I issued a special one yesterday on J.D. Vance. A lot of you have been asking me about who is J.D. Vance. So I put together a comprehensive newsletter telling you about the background of J.D. Vance. And most importantly, Harumphers have been just extraordinary. Saturday night, I put out an emergency newsletter when Donald Trump was shot. Monday, we had coverage. Yesterday, we had coverage. I've got another one this morning. But I gave away 2 of them just completely free because I wanted everybody to read and know and be able to communicate. Everybody that's signed up. Some of you are free members who are not subscribers, paid subscribers, so you're not participating in the comment section. I'm telling you right now, if ever there were a time that we need to be together as a community and talking and sharing honestly and openly our thoughts, our debates, our dialogue and discussions in a civil way where there aren't trolls and haters, it is at the Harumph Society. So if you're not a member, I hope you'll consider sincerely becoming one. I'm awfully proud of Harumphers and the way they're conducting themselves in the comment section. It's a place for friends. I hope the information that I'm sharing with you is useful. Today's Harumph Society monologue talks about what I view as Trump 2.0, sort of a reboot, and his new inner circle. That's really what's been impressed upon me in the last couple of days. There's been a real shift and a realignment in the most positive way. So that's today's Harumph Society. Go to chrisstigall.com and you'll find a link to it. Or if you're already on Substack, I hope you'll join us. I think right now we've still got it, what, $250 a month? So that's $30 for the whole year. I mean, it's as dirt cheap as it gets. And I hope you will consider joining us because we need one another now hurtling toward this crazy thing. If Bill O'Reilly is right, I don't know what gets bigger than what happened Saturday, but he says he thinks there's another one coming. I mean, that kind of thing, you know, typically we talk about October surprises. If it's worse than that or bigger than that, I shudder to think what it is. But buckle up. So go to chrisstigall.com and join us. I hope that you will.
The Chris Stigall Show podcast.